Welcome to Scale Model Basics. 3D decals have been around for a while with generic sets to do rivets, weld seams, casting marks. They've gone through kind of a renaissance of late with companies producing 3D decals for instrument panels and consoles in aircraft, as well as hull sets to detail the surface of specific aircraft or vehicles. We're going to take a look at how to apply those. Depending on the type and purpose of the decals, they apply slightly differently. These space decals from Eduard for the instrument panel on a Spitfire Mark II apply like normal waterslide decals. So you're going to need your basic supplies: scissors, tweezers, cotton swabs, some warm water, and a paper towel. I've already prepped the instrument panel by painting it and gloss coating it in preparation for the decals. First thing I'm going to do is separate the decal from the rest of the sheet with some scissors. Dip in some warm water for a few seconds and put it on the paper towel to let it do its thing. In the meantime, I will apply a little bit of setting solution where it goes, just to make sure the surface is prepped. And then let me see if this is doing its thing yet. It is. So, just like a normal decal, slide it off and work it into place. That's a lot stiffer than your normal decals, as you'd expect, since it's three-dimensional. So you don't really have a lot to squeeze out from under it, but I will just go ahead and do my best to squeeze it out. Just make sure you don't push it around too much. Make sure you get it where you want it before it dries. That's all I can say. Like any decal. As you can see, it's in place and looks really sharp without any extra work. I just have to let that dry and I can go ahead and build the model around it. Eduard also produces Eddie the Riveter decals. These are surface detail decals designed for a specific kit. In this case, I have a set for an Mi-24 helicopter, and as you can see from the very colorful instructions, they have decals that cover almost every panel on the airframe. The process to apply them is slightly different than standard waterslide decals, so you're going to need some slightly different tools. You will need your scissors, a hobby knife, some tweezers, but rather than a bowl of warm water, I have a bowl of warm water mixed with a couple of drops of dish detergent, a sponge that has been soaked in that soapy water, and then another dry sponge. In preparation for decaling, I have primed these parts. I did have to fill a couple of holes and file away a couple of details that the instructions call out, and then have given them a couple of light coats of clear gloss. Decal cut out, I'm going to press it into this sponge. You can see the soapy water coming up out of it. It's going to leave that there for a minute. You can see that it's just like any other decal. The blue paper is changing. And I'm going to get some of the soapy water from the mix, and I'm just going to use my fingers to smooth it over the surface that it's going to go on. See where this is at. See if it's ready to move yet. Try to line this up with the panel that's engraved on the surface, and then just pull the carrier paper out. These are fragile, so you don't want to tear them by giving them too much stress as you're applying it. And you take your time to get this lined up, because once it's set, you're not going to be able to reposition it. So then take the dry sponge and just press it onto the surface. Don't move the sponge. You're just trying to press the decal onto the surface without moving it. I'm using a Q-tip just to roll out a couple of air bubbles I can see trapped under there that the sponge was not pushing out. But now that it's down on the surface, there's less danger of it moving around. These thicker sections, where there are like three-dimensional panels that sit slightly up proud of the surface, take a little bit of extra work to work around detail and to settle down. So I'm gonna come back in with the cotton swab after the sponge and really work those areas individually to be sure that they go where I need them to go, and get all those bubbles and so forth out. Obviously, this is not a quick process. And so on and so forth until you've covered the entire airframe with the decals. Now, typically, you would want to have built the entire model and be ready to paint before applying these decals. As a word of note, we tried Tamiya Mark Fit Strong to see about settling these over some stubborn details. It worked very well and did not appear to distort them at all, so it's probably a good choice. Once you've got all the decals on, seal it with 2 or 3 thin coats of primer, then go ahead and paint as normal and add your decals. While you're painting, use a low-tack masking system so as not to pull up those decals, which is going to really be irritating after doing all this extra work, and it's going to be really hard to repair. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.